What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today it is time that we do a post-mortem of the first 2024 Republican presidential forum that happened just yesterday. That is right. If you don't know, yesterday 6 major Republicans went to the state of Iowa to the Family Leadership Summit and held a forum with Tucker Carlson one-on-one. Yeah, Tucker Carlson returned and, well, he hosted the event at the Family Leadership Summit in the great state of Iowa. And this was really it wasn't a debate because, they didn't go all at once. They went one at a time. But still, this was, I consider, the first unofficial debate of the 2024 cycle, just without, say, all on the stage at once and without a certain Donald Trump. So I wanted to go over how did everyone do in their appearance at the Family Leadership Summit, and who are the winners? Who are the winners and losers of this event? And we're going to go over that today. Now, before we continue with today's video, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Guys, just for $1 a month, you can join Real American. That's right. Click that blue button down below that says join, and you can support the daily content we all know and love. So I hope and recommend you join the channel today. Alright, everybody. So let's go over it. Now, like I said, Donald Trump did not appear. But before even we get into that, if you want to know what the Family Leadership Summit is, imagine it as the evangelical meeting in Iowa. This is where all the evangelical leaders meet in the great state of Iowa. And you may understand that for Iowa, that's pretty freaking important, because the Iowa caucus is very evangelical compared to the rest of the primary cycle. So this is why many candidates did show up to the Family Leadership Summit, because this is one of the largest, I believe it is the largest group in the Iowa caucus, the evangelical vote. So 6 candidates show up: Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Asa Hutchinson, Mike Pence, Tim Scott, and of course, Vivek Ramaswamy. Trump did not show up. I wish he would have, but after seeing what Tucker did to some of these people, and again, Tucker Carlson did host the interviews, it may have been the smartest thing for him not to show up, because, man, there were a couple people that their campaigns, they're done. Their careers are over. So let's get into it. Let's go over who showed up and what they said real quick, and then we're going to go over who are the winners and losers of this event. So the first one, of course, is Governor DeSantis. He actually went last, so this is going in reverse order of, who went last to first instead of, first to last. You get the point. So Ron DeSantis, he actually played this, I would say, pretty smart on Kim Reynolds' part. He praised the Iowa governor for signing a 6-week abortion ban at the summit, which he actually did. And I actually like this. Kim Reynolds has been a solid governor for the state of Iowa for several years now, and I'm glad that they did pass a heartbeat abortion ban in the state. So I think that at this part, DeSantis played it very smart, hammering the fact that I support what Kim Reynolds is doing because, again, evangelical voters in Iowa, they're arguably the most conservative voters in the entire primary process compared to, other groups and, the sheer amount of them. You get the point that I would say this was actually a pretty smart thing for DeSantis to do. Now, he did take a dig at Trump for, saying that a 6-week abortion ban is too harsh, which, yeah, I agree yet disagree. I understand what Trump is arguing, that you're never going to get it through a federal ban at 6 weeks. You could probably get a late-term abortion ban. There's already been a couple Democrats like Klobuchar of all people saying they do support bans on late-term abortion. But I understand where DeSantis is coming from too, like, hey, the state of Alabama, they probably should be able to ban abortion at conception or whatever. But I do agree with Trump that a federal ban outside of a late-term thing is just not feasible. And I do think would hurt, say, DeSantis in the 2024 election for the fact that while I think it's not as unpopular as people claim, it's obvious that more people would support a ban on late-term abortion than, say, ban at 6 weeks. So yeah, DeSantis focused on the abortion stuff. He did get asked about Ukraine, but it was kind of just awkward. You keep looking at him, and I'm not insulting for him. It's just like, I don't know if he has ADHD or something, because he kept, he kept moving. Like, his hands were, like, fiddling around with the microphone. It was like, I'm not attacking him for it, but it's like, seemed kind of strange. But either way, I don't think it was a bad event for DeSantis. Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, we'll get to it, but my goodness, this was his moment. Vivek Ramaswamy, in my opinion, had the best overall answer to a question of the entire cycle. Or not the entire cycle, the entire event. And this is what I'm talking about. He pledged to negotiate a deal that ends the Ukraine war, if elected, which would include giving part of the Donbass region to Russia, and committed to never admitting Ukraine into NATO. However, this part just ignores the other fact where, if this is the deal, Russia's not allowed to work with or have ties with China, and they have to pull their nukes out of the region right next to Poland and the Baltics. You realize that, it's like, that's actually a fair deal. Russia gets part of the Donbass region, and Ukraine's not allowed in NATO. But at the same time, they got to pull nukes away from the border with NATO, and they got to cut ties with China to a lesser extent. But Ramaswamy, he played this smart. He focused on the fact that, look, this war in Ukraine, we got to end this ASAP, because this is just becoming another Vietnam or another Iraq war. And he received a standing ovation after his interview. So I would say, this was, in my opinion, his moment, but we'll get to that in a little bit about who the winners and losers were, which you probably can guess what I think about him. Now, Nikki Haley, I was actually surprised by this. I was honestly surprised by Nikki Haley. Now, Tucker here, he didn't ask any foreign policy questions, but he did ask some good questions about, say, energy independence, about, the election stuff. And Nikki Haley, I'd say, gave the best answers of what she was given. I mean, she focused a lot about, the mental health crisis and how, hey, we got to invest more into mental health and be able to get telehealth communication set up. Which I'm like, wow, coming from Nikki Haley? It's kind of surprising. And she had a good answer to energy independence. Kind of generic, but, she says, this is a national security threat of not having energy independence. But I do think overall her answers for the energy stuff, the election stuff, they were all actually pretty solid. I gotta give it to her for having overall some very solid answers from questions that were given by Tucker Carlson. So this wasn't, a freebie by Sean Hannity. This was by somebody with a brain in Tucker Carlson, and I was impressed. Now we get to Mike Pence, and I made a video on this yesterday, but, his answer to the January 6th stuff, which he was asked about, wasn't that bad. He flat out said, I never used the word insurrection, Tucker, over the last 2 years, but it was a riot that took place at the Capitol that day. And he answered okay considering the circumstances of it. And it was actually a good question by Tucker, so it wasn't like some gotcha moment. It was actually a good question. Pence gave probably the best answer to what he was given. But my goodness, the stuff on Ukraine. It doesn't have the quote here, but Ramaswamy had the best answer of the night. Mike Pence may have the blunder of the entire cycle. But we'll get to that in a second. Either way, Mike Pence's response to foreign policy, just read this. I believe that is an interest of the United States of America to continue to give Ukrainian military resources that they need to repel Russian invasion and restore their sovereignty. But it just keeps going. I mean, I do believe that after the war is won and over, we need to welcome Ukraine and NATO, and then we need to embrace them, and they have to join the West. It's like, right after a brutal war with Russia, in the event they do win, don't you think that's kind of just not the smartest thing to do right away? And then he also said, anybody that says that we can't be the leader of the free world and solve our problems at home have a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth. What? So, yeah, Mike Pence had some weird answers about foreign policy, but the one I'm talking about in particular, we'll get to that in the next section, but either way, it's Mike Pence's weakest suit has always been economics and foreign policy, and it really showed here. I mean, we have so many problems at home. You're talking about this, how we need to be, leader of the free world. That's just being the world police. That's not good. Asa Hutchinson existed. He defended his veto of the gender-affirming care restrictions, which... Why? You're the governor of Arkansas? But the dumbest thing is, he doubled down, actually tripled down on this in an evangelical event in Iowa. The most conservative of conservative people. You tripled down on this transgender stuff for kids? When you were the governor of Arkansas? This bill did go too far. It was unconstitutional. It interfered with parents. What parents would allow this? Let's keep the government out of it, except if it's an extreme case. I just love, the government. They can never get involved in anything. But this thinking's 30 years old. Why do we have such backwards policies where the government's not allowed to get involved in anything? What are you freaking talking about? You're in Iowa, the most conservative organization, mind you, or most conservative voter in the state of Iowa, and you're tripling down on liberal policy like this? Not just economics, it's liberal social issues. Far left, in fact. For kids? This wasn't even for, 18 to 29 or 21-year-olds. This is for kids that are like 2, or I should say more like 12, but it's like, Hutchinson, what are you talking about? And of course, the last one is Tim Scott. Oh boy. Tim Scott, he had some okay answers. He was very charismatic. I think he definitely, of all the candidates, he really was engaged with the crowd the most. He got them going. He stood up a lot. That was kind of weird, but his answers were pretty bad. His answers were brutally bad, especially when it came to foreign policy. Once again, a lot of the similar stuff as, say, Mike Pence, but at least it wasn't as egregious. At least he did try to communicate that he says, no, we can't, send troops on the ground to Ukraine. There's no reason for it. I'll give him that for saying that. But outside of that, it was not a good day for Mike or Tim Scott for the questions. Or for the answers, I should say. And of course, Tucker Carlson, great host. So let's go over this. Let's go over who are the winners and losers of this event. First up, let's get rid of the two people that aren't here. Actually, the one person that was here that was the host, Tucker. I think Tucker Carlson won. He won this event because he showed he can prove who's a fraud and who's for real. Who's an actual conservative and who's some liberal nutjob that's pretending to be a Republican. And this was a big victory for Tucker Carlson, and he showed he's the only one in the media with a brain. I mean, he's the only one asking questions that matter. Like foreign policy, the economy. He's the only one asking about it. It's not like Sean Hannity about, well, Hunter Biden 20 years ago scratched his ass. He should be sent to jail for it. It's like, what are you freaking talking about? Tucker at least answered or asked smart questions. I thought he was a winner of the event. And of course, Donald Trump. Because he didn't show up And a lot of these idiots dug their own graves even further. Well, let's go one by one. Tim Scott, I think he took a loss today, or I should say yesterday. This was not a good event for Tim Scott at all. Yeah, he was charismatic, but people did not clap when he did answer. There were some bad answers there. Not as egregious as a certain somebody, but I think Tim Scott, especially how other people did, this was a bad event for him. If he didn't talk with a foreign policy, it may have been a W just for the charismatic parts, but yeah, just some of the stuff when it comes to, saying there's like, oh, we gotta get more involved in Ukraine, use every tool available. It's like, again, at least it's not boots on the ground, but I consider that an L for Tim Scott. Asa Hutchinson, big fat L. Nobody clapped for him. He didn't get one clap. It was for Tucker. People clapped for Tucker, the host. They didn't clap for the person that showed up for there. It's like, what were you talking about, tripling down on this, transgender stuff for kids in Arkansas? But if there was one big fat loser of the event, it was Mike Pence. His career is dead. And most of you remember the quote? He flat out said, Tucker asked, okay, our cities are falling apart, our economy is going to crap, but you're not concerned about that, yet you're concerned more about Ukraine getting tanks. Are you concerned about the cities? And he said, no, that's not my concern. You frickin' moron. You could have said anything there. And I don't care if he's misunderstood or, he meant that for something else. It doesn't matter. The sound bites out there. Everybody's doubling down on it. They're capitalizing on it. It's over. His career is done. This was the dumbest thing you could have said. He was the biggest loser of the event. And really, it's like, what does he have going for him now? The religious stuff? I think Tim Scott's going to start taking that. So, Pence, you're done. Your fundraising numbers sucked. And, well, that event was a final nail in the coffin. Nikki Haley, I have to say, actually won. She got a victory here. I think that she answered the questions good. She did engage with the audience well. And, there were some disagreements with Tucker, of course, but they were civil about it. They were discussing the disagreements on some things. So, yeah, I think Nikki Haley had a surprisingly good event. But the biggest winner by far, is Ramaswamy. He had his breakout moment. He was the only one to receive a standing ovation after the interview because he answered the foreign policy stuff with perfection. He said, this is our next Vietnam or Iraq if we don't end it ASAP. We need to negotiate with Russia. Yes, we're not going to get everything we want, but neither should Russia. This is an opportunity to establish peace, not only with Russia, but also to China. He answered it perfectly. Absolutely perfect. Comparing it to Vietnam is correct, just except we may not have boots on the ground yet. That's the only difference at this point. He answered it with perfection. He was the biggest winner, and I think he had the most to gain from this, and he did. As for DeSantis, I guess it's a win, because unlike Pence or Hutchinson, he didn't crap himself up there, but the answers were kind of The charisma is just not there at all, and he was really weird with he could stay still for 5 seconds. He had to keep moving his hands. It's like, it's not like Trump, using hand motions. I mean, he's just sitting there listening to Tucker, and his hands are like fiddling around with the mic. I don't know about that, but it's a victory for him because he didn't suck completely. But yeah, that was the Family Leadership Summit. Some good things happened for candidates. Others, well, the end of their political careers. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, Follow the social media accounts in the description down below. And of course, join the channel today. Thank you so much. Godspeed to all of you.